Hey, it's John from Tinderbox Arts. So I have my R1200RT. It's a 2012 model year, all apart here because I was doing some maintenance. And one of the things I'm going to look at is the light bulbs. I have everything apart anyway, so now it's a good time to do them all. And so here's the turn signals, which stay, the connector stays attached to the bike here. And you have to take the mirrors off to get at that. But you can usually do the headlights without taking everything apart if your hands aren't too big and you have some patience. But one of the problems is just understanding what it looks like in there because you're kind of working blind. So while I have everything apart, I thought I'd show you what the headlight bezel looks like from behind and up close so you can understand what you're doing if you're trying to do this with all the fairings on. Alright, here's the back of the headlight bezel, and just to show you locations of everything, the running lights, which are those little tiny little lights, are way deep in here, and they have, see this little lever arm right here? That turns with one finger and you can pull this running light out. I'm trying to do this one-handed. Okay, so you can do that. I just did it holding the camera and doing it one-handed, but it's kind of a pain. That's really deep in there. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't think you can really do that without taking everything apart. But that's the running lights. Then you have low beam, and high beam in the middle. And you have the connector for all the lights right here. And this right here, this little nut right here, is your horizontal adjustment. And this right here is your vertical adjustment. And a lot of bikes also have a little cable connected doodad here, so you have a little knob to turn on the dash, which will do some adjustment vertically. So when you have a rider on the seat, a passenger on the seat, I should say, behind you, and it puts weight in the back, then you can make a small adjustment. But the major adjustment is here. So low, high, low, and then to get access to these, you just turn this like that and it pops right off. So this is not centered in the hole. I'm not really sure why they did it that way, but they did. So when you're working blind, you might be tempted to look in the middle here for all the stuff that you're after, but it's not really in the center. So to get this bulb out, you pull this. All right, there's your connector, and then there's a spring clip right here. Right, I'm going to get up close and show you that. Alright, so this spring clip, I can hardly hold the camera and get in here at the same time, but you see the ends of it right here? If I just push down on that clip and unhook it, that's loose. And the same thing on the other side. I'm going to push down. Sure I am. Alright, and that's with the camera in the way. So that now swings up and out of the way, and that exposes the bulb, which just comes out like that. And take a look at that tab on the top. That tab, I'm going to take this bulb all the way out now. The tab fits in right here, so you got to be careful that when you're putting this back in, that you get the tab oriented correctly so it fits in that slot. Then the spring clamp just comes right back down and hooks under these things again, and that's it. See, the other two lights are the same way. You got same thing in there. Now this one, notice, is not oriented up but oriented down in relation to the hole. This one will be similar to the first one. So when you're looking at this, like I said, when you're working blind, it's different in the hole than you might imagine. And as far as the bulbs, if you're not going to use LED, it's just this H7 bulb. Now, our R1200RTs in the later years anyway use a canbus system. So there's no fuse. There's like a little computer network that checks out the wiring. And that little network wants to see a certain resistance in each area where there's a bulb. And so they're designed for the same resistance as these H7 bulbs, which are incandescent bulbs, provide. Now if you try to replace that with an LED light, the LED light uses less electricity, has less resistance. and the CAN bus system will complain. So you have to put a little device in between there, which is essentially a resistor, and it wastes electricity, but it makes the CAN bus system happy. So I was actually going to try that on this, but I found out the ones that I bought were too tall and they would interfere with the back here, and I didn't really want to mess with all that, so I ended up sending those back, and for now I'm just going to use the standard A7. Alright, with the bezel back in the bike, but still with a lot of the fairing and mirrors off, you can see better where we are. So here's the right side, low beam, and if I get in there real close, let's see. Here's the connector right here, and the other side, there's your other low beam, and your high beam is pretty well in there. Lastly, let me show you the front turn signal. So I have this basically apart here. So this turn signal bezel, whatever you want to call it, comes off, but it's behind the mirror. Alright, I have the blinker housing just temporarily mounted here, right? It goes in the front. It's just on there loose right now. There's one screw right here, which I have in there temporarily because it actually doesn't belong like that. But I just want to show you what it looks like behind the mirror. There's your light bulb. Now the mirror, that screw up here that I just showed you that holds, that's the only screw that holds the blinker housing on there, and that actually belongs right in that elongated slot right there, right here. So that goes in there, and the mirror fits in there like that. So that screw that I'm talking about is actually accessed through this hole right here. Alright, so this is just hanging on here temporarily. But you see how that orientation goes. So now I'll put this together and I'll show you this little hole right here. But getting this mirror off is another trick, and I'm going to show you that too. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about. To get to that screw that holds the housing on, you're supposed to access it with a long Torx through this little hole in here and get to the back. But then you just have a screw here and a screw back there, which isn't in yet, which holds the mirror housing on. So that is 3 screws basically that holds that all together. Alright, the last part of this little joy is the mirror itself. So the mirror itself gets mounted on this. It kind of clips into place, which I'll show you in a second. And there's a set screw at the bottom. That's what holds the mirror. To get to that set screw, see this little hole right in here? You come from underneath. See if I can do this one hand. There it is, sneaking through. So you come from underneath with a Torx head, and that gets to that set screw. But the mirror has to be just exactly right, and you have to look up in there with a flashlight to get that set screw lined up exactly with that hole, because the hole is really too small. As a matter of fact, I may drill that out and make it a little bit bigger. But once you get to the set screw with a Torx head, you unscrew the set screw. There's a mouthful. And then you can kind of pry the mirror off of this little round housing. Now let me show you the back of the mirror. Alright, here's the back of the mirror. Here's our set screw right here. And then that round part there just sort of clips onto that round housing over here. Alright, it just clips in there. But to hold it in place, this set screw, comes all the way out. So you have to back that set screw out. Now, having shown you all the mirror and the turn signal housing there, how it's put together, you can, if that screw is located where it's supposed to be, which is on top of the mirror housing, right, you can sneak in a Torx extension past the mirror without taking the mirror off. And I mean, it's a tight fit. You're probably going to play with it a little bit, but it is possible to do. So if you install that screw the right way, you don't have to take the mirror off in order to get at the turn signal, which is what it was intended. On this bike here, when I changed the turn signal, I bought this used. Somebody put it back together the other way. So it's 6-to-1, I guess, how you want to do it, but this is the way it's supposed to be done, and you can just barely sneak in a Torx extension.